Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as dozens more non-Muslims in northern Kenya are targeted in a brutal mass execution by Al-Shabaab militants, President Kenyatta says he won't let up in the pushback against terror. He sacks his interior minister and accepts the resignation of his police chief. Also, the streets of Ouagadougou are flooded with tens of thousands of people who turn out to an official funeral to mourn the casualties of the uprising that ousted President Blaise Campaoré in October. And they're nappy and they know it. We meet the natural hair beauty queens of Paris as they prepare to show off their Afro assets in the first Miss Natural and Happy pageant here in the City of Lights. First up, the bodies of 36 quarry workers executed by Islamic extremists because they weren't Muslim have been flown back to Nairobi. Somali Al-Shabaab militants have claimed responsibility for the killings, which happened in Mandera County near the border with Somalia earlier on Tuesday. The area was hit by a similar attack last week. President Kenyatta's vowed to push back against the ramping up of Al-Shabaab's campaign of terror.
All recent attacks bear the terrorist signature. Last week's bus attack was accompanied by the same typical terrorist rhetoric. A few months ago, the attack in Lamu, bearing the same hallmarks. And last night, a terrorist attack that would have wrought unspeakable devastation was successfully repulsed in Wajir. And early this morning, the attack in Mandera left 36 Kenyans dead.
Well, Tuesday's violence has prompted President Uhuru Kenyatta to fire his interior minister and accept the resignation of his police chief. For more on today's developments, Duncan Woodside joins us. He's in Nairobi for us. Duncan, now non-Muslims in Mandera must be feeling very vulnerable right now.
They are, and that's a situation which actually stretches back beyond the attack which took place early this morning. There was, of course, this attack 10 days ago in Mandera County when Al-Shabaab ambushed a bus, and that resulted in the death of 28 people executed from close range with gunshots, just like happened in the early hours of this morning when the 36 people died. Now, a few days ago, after the initial incident, the initial big incident, people within that county, non-Muslims, voiced their concerns and said that many of them said that they wanted to leave, while others camped out temporarily at an army base. But the Kenyan government tried to reassure people that their security was guaranteed, and of course that's resulted in another situation here now where people feel less secure than ever, and surely now there is a mass exodus, or a danger of a mass exodus of people from this area, at least non-Muslims.
Duncan, Police Chief Campaoré has quit, he says, for personal reasons, but this comes also as the Interior Minister has been sacked. Are they being scapegoated, or was there more they could have been doing to rein in the rampages of Al-Shabaab?
And Joseph Olelenku, the Cabinet Secretary to the Interior, and David Kimayo, who is in charge of the police. They were both in senior positions during the Westgate crisis as well. That, of course, happened just over a year ago and resulted in 67 people being slaughtered at an upmarket shopping mall in Nairobi. So big question marks over the handling of that case initially, and then the further attacks which have taken place since then, including the two big attacks over the last 10 days. So mounting calls for them to resign, and obviously that's resulted in the action which the President has taken today. Going forward, obviously, Kenyans very much hoping that there will be an improvement in terms of the security forces' control of the situation on the ground. But it must be said that areas of Kenya, particularly in the north, close to the border with Somalia, so that's mainly Wajir and Mandera, look extremely vulnerable right now.
Thanks very much, Duncan Woodside, there for us in Nairobi. Tens of thousands of people turned out in Ouagadougou on Tuesday for the official funeral of those killed during the ouster of President Blaise Campaoré back in October. At least 24 people lost their lives during the demonstrations that led up to Campaoré's exit. La patrie ou la mort.
Burkina Faso's national anthem sang by those who took part in October's revolution against Blaise Campaoré. A ceremony for those who died was held this Tuesday. According to an official inquiry, 24 people were killed during the uprising. 6 bodies had still not been buried. The coffins were first taken to the capital's main square. The ceremony was attended by the new interim leaders and tens of thousands of people. For some, the pain is still very raw. The procession then moved towards the cemetery, a difficult moment for the victims' families.
He died to save Burkina Faso. When we think of that, we are, I suppose, happy, but it's extremely difficult.
October's protesters remain optimistic 1 month after the fall of Blaise Campaoré.
These martyrs made change possible here. Today we are happy and determined to continue our struggle to improve Burkina Faso.
The new authorities said the victims were martyrs and national heroes, and that a monument would soon be erected in their memory.
Tunisia's first permanent parliament in nearly 4 years met for its first session on Tuesday. The president of the outgoing interim assembly marked the handover with a reminder to the newly elected body that it would face new tests on the road to democracy. Since the revolution that ousted President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali back in 2011, the country's been following a slow, sometimes bumpy, but relatively consistent process of transition. The secular Nida Tounes party won recent legislative elections and will be charged with naming a new prime minister after the final round of presidential voting that's due to happen in December. Well, Zimbabwe's ruling party started a key congress in Harare today. President Robert Mugabe's promised that there'll be some big news coming out of ZANU-PF's 5-yearly meeting, speculation that has already arisen around the political ambition of his wife, Grace. Nicknamed Gucci Grace by some, she recently and controversially received a rather mysterious PhD and is expected to be named as the head of the party's Women's League. As her star rises, that of Vice President Joyce Majuru has dimmed. She's been accused by Grace and state media of plotting against Mugabe. What her supporters say is a smear campaign. Well, Robert Tapfumanei is in Harare. He joins us now for more. Robert, does everyone expect Grace Mugabe to be manoeuvred into place to possibly be Robert Mugabe's successor? And if so, how do people in ZANU-PF generally feel about this possibility?
It might be just a mere talk, and from my understanding, this is very, very unlikely because ZANU-PF is a revolutionary party, and most of their members are war veterans of the liberation struggle. They are on record saying that they will never salute anyone who has never been involved in that war. And remember, when Zimbabwe got independence in 1980, Grace was only a 14-year-old little girl. And for them now to change that stance and allow Grace Mugabe to take over as the leader of Zimbabwe, that's impossible.
Now, Robert Mugabe said that there are going to be some big announcements this week. Any idea what some of those might be?
Yes, he said that. And from what has been going on within the Revolutionary Party, has been divided into small factions now, though we have two that has been talked about, the Mnangagwa faction and that of Joyce Majuru, the vice president. But we believe that there is also a third force that people might have talked about recently. This is mainly composed of the young generation, which has been pushing the older ones out. You can tell that from the last 2 weeks.
Robert?
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is all we have time for on that. But hopefully we're hearing from you again soon as the Congress continues this week. Robert Tapfumanei there for us in Harare. Well, before we go, dealing with Afro hair can be a real hassle, and that is something that I can tell you from personal experience. But over the weekend, a competition was held to celebrate the lovely ladies who put the time in to make sure that their natural hair looks its best. Take a look.
Armel J is a student and model living in Paris. The 24-year-old Cameroonian is proud of her African roots. It's been 15 years since she stopped straightening her hair. It's a personal choice that has required a certain amount of discipline.
I wash my hair just once a week. I make sure I set aside at least 2 hours to wash it properly. It's not only my hair I have to take care of. I also wash my scalp. I have a whole range of products that I use. Each one has a different purpose.
Armel is a nappy convert. Nappy is a combination of the words natural and happy, and fans of the hair concept say they're celebrating the versatility of their natural locks, with more and more girls with afro hair choosing to, quite literally, go back to their natural roots. This year saw the first ever Miss Nappy beauty contest held in France.
I think that the nappy trend will last. Girls can be very self-conscious when it comes to their hair and the ways in which they can style it. Hair can really change a person's appearance.
Armel is counting on the Miss Nappy contest to further her modelling career, but she's up against 18 other girls and is eventually named runner-up. Even without the crown, Armel still sees herself as an ambassador for natural beauty.
As do we, Armel. That's it from us, though. Stay with us, more coming up.